Hi, everyone. Welcome this week. Really excited to have in studio with us Prince Baawuah, who is founder of Heels Academy. Hey, Prince, how's it going today?
Hi, Shannon. I'm doing very well. Thank you. How are you doing today?
Very well. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to have you in studio because I know we run into one another a lot at conferences and we always get to chat. And I'm always amazed by your background and really excited to get to share with folks today a little bit more about what you do and a little bit more about your experience. And so I was hoping we could start off with just talking about what you're doing at Heels Academy, what type of services that you're offering, and the things that you're doing.
Sure. It's good to have you here and also spend the time with you this afternoon. So, I currently with the Hills Academy as the founder, CEO, and also as a chief tutor because I love to teach and the academy. But Hills Academy is set up so that risk adjustment processes are easy to understand. I think when I started in the risk adjustment space since 2014, I know it's been 10 years now, but just learning and talking to people, learning that risk adjustment is complex. That's one of the things that you will hear. Resources are very difficult to find, navigating through CSSC, navigating through CMS website, and even trying to find where to find things. Finding where to find things is very difficult.
Absolutely.
So what Hughes Academy is set up to do is how do we make risk adjustment simple? How do we make risk adjustment simple for providers that are with their team trying to understand risk adjustment so that they receive fair, accurate, complete, and timely payment? How do we make it simple for health plans and their practitioners to get to that same fact, fair, accurate, complete, and timely payment? How do we make it simple for the innovators who are getting into risk adjustment and they are trying to learn and navigate through this space because this space is very niche and finding knowledge is very complex. So, how do we make it simple and easy using modern technology and modern tools, creating cheat sheets that people can grab and go and learn and execute so that they get time back to focus on patients that they've been called and they've been trained to serve? And that is the purpose and the mission of the Heals Academy right now.
I think that's such an important function. I recall maybe it was a couple of months ago, and I was looking for something for someone, and I laughed because I was on the CMS website, and I ended back in 2011
Hmm.
of all things. And so you do, it's almost like going down a rabbit hole, and you have to orientate or orient yourself as you're looking through and researching and looking through the materials. Are there any, besides partnering with Heels Academy, are there any other recommendations that you might have for folks in our audience as they're navigating the space and looking to learn more information? Any tips or suggestions that you might impart to them of how they might stay up to date?
Yeah, I think CSSC operations is a very great place
Yeah.
as people navigate through it. HPMS is a great place. With what Hills Academy is doing is how do we curate them, make it easier? Sometimes you may hear a word like, and I always ask that question when somebody tell you a year in risk adjustment, you have to stop and pause and ask, are you talking about service here? Are you
Yes.
talking about data collection here? Are you talking about payment here?
Yes.
Are you talking about, or even when somebody tell you, okay, I'm talking about a submission. Are you talking about file submission? Are you talking about a record submission? Are you talking about encounter data submission? Are you talking about chart review record submission? It's like the terminologies and the words are very difficult and hard to find. And what Hughes Academy has done greatly with all the knowledge after working at CMS for almost 8 years and leaving, I worked for CMS since 2014, about 7 years, more than 7 years, leaving CMS, working in this space in the encounter data and risk adjustment operations and policy and analytics, curating all the knowledge that I have, what tools can be created in that way, cheat sheets, and partnering, apart from partnering, learning from each other. I think it's a community, it's a family, it's a tribe, it's a niche. So, how do we bring people together? How do we develop a community around us where we can all learn? I know is competition. Yeah, the competition is there, but the knowledge that helps drive the competition, I think that is where Hughes Academy is specializing in how to democratize the knowledge so that the competition can be even better. And the providers and the health plan can focus on what they've been called.
One of the comments that I've gotten throughout my career, and I know that some folks might disagree with this, but I've worked with some individuals in the past and they were like, oh, you shouldn't share knowledge. And I would agree with you. I think that when we share knowledge, it just drives us to get better. And there's that story. What's that Harvard business case about? I think it was Kodak or Xerox, one of those companies not wanting to change and feeling like that they were omnipresent in the industry that they were in. And they found out very easily that was not the case and that no one's position is for certain. And I think we're even seeing that in our industry today with a lot of
Yes.
companies that are being consolidated. So I absolutely agree with you. I think that there's enough work for everyone. And then
Yes.
together, working together, we only get stronger. But
We
I'm
get
going to
strong.
take you back for a second
No
because
problem.
I'll tell you, when I was reading the final rule between CY and PY, and
Uh,
was it calendar year? Was it coverage year? Was it payment year? Can I get you to break it down for us? How should we be interpreting? I would love that. And I want to talk to you about your experience at CMS because I'm excited too that we have an insider and then we'll get some of those knowledge. But could you help our audience out? Because I can tell you lots of people call me and I'm always kind of checking just to make sure that I've got it right. Take us through and talk about CY, PY, and
why?
any other
Sure.
acronyms that we should be
Sure.
paying
That
attention to.
definitely. And it's interesting because I have a YouTube learning series on
Ah,
just payment years, and it
mhm.
covers 8 different series and or 8 different learning. So there is just on years. So it's called risk adjustment years, and it's a YouTube playlist, and it goes
Nice.
through calendar year, data collection year. So what I did was I looked at these documents online on the CMS resources, and I looked at what are the various terminology for years that I could find. And looking at them, trying to understand what, yeah, it's so interesting. It's called the risk adjustment years. So, calendar year, the regular calendar year, there is the Julian date year, which comes in with your ICN, right? The Julian
Wow.
date year. You look at your ICN, the first 3 digits are the first five, the first two are the year, then the three are the dates within the year. So, the Julian date year, there is a calendar year. Oh, I talked about calendar year. There's payment year, right? Which is the risk adjustment payment years that we see. But sometimes the CY, which is calendar year, can also be contract year. Can also be contract year, right? What are the contract years? So the contracts also have their own years. So understanding that there's a payment year, there's a calendar year, there is the service year. Right. Their service here, the date of service that are corresponding to a service. So as you go through it was so surprising to me that I thought I take a concept and I break it down within a month. But when I got to the years, I did 2 months of it. So 8 different years in risk adjustment. And I think it's phenomenal because you might see the same terminology or the same acronym that is in one document. You
Yeah.
open that a similar document for the next year, and you will see a different word that are being used there. So you're reading it and you are thinking through, is this the same? And that is what Hughes Academy is set up to do. Because I have a better understanding, I can look at them, put all the documents together, curate them, clean them up, and ultimately see how we can create cheat sheets and learning resources together with modern technology, either using YouTube or using the large language models to help get a better understanding on that, where people can understand this and be able to understand and move forward with the work that.
I think that's fantastic because I literally remember the CY and how coverage year, calendar year, how it
Oh,
was used to play. And I even went out to the CMS website and looked at the glossary. And then I'm like, well,
oh,
wait a
good
minute.
luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Someone needs to work with them. CMS, if you're listening, on uploading their website and making sure that everything is consistent. But no, I think that's great. And I plan to watch your YouTube. So I would love for us to talk a little bit more about your experience because you're an insider and would love to hear a little bit more about your insights and your experience working at CMS. So
Yeah, man.
do tell.
Sure. CMS is a phenomenal place to be. That was where I started my career right from my grad school from Michigan. I moved to Maryland and I started with the division of encounter data and risk adjustment operations, doing the risk adjustment work and encounter data, getting it. Wonderful work, impact all over the place along the world. I started with getting the risk adjustment data and encounter data mostly because when I started, encounter data had got started. And most of my work, encounter data training with the user group calls, encounter data operations, MAO2, MAO4, MAO2 enhanced, chart review policies, phenomenal place. I love to teach. So usually areas that are pertaining to training, areas that are pertaining to developing resources. I love developing resources that make it easier for people to execute. So areas that pertains to all of them were places that I always try to get myself involved in understanding, doing business process model, understanding that and moving things along so that the end users save time.
Yes.
They focus on what they are called to do. So working at CMS was phenomenal. I finished my doctoral degree at Hopkins in health informatics and looking at the various ways that my contribution can add to the industry. I started on the Hughes Academy, seeing how I can bridge my expertise in health informatics and the data and the policy and the operations, and also my love for instruction to bring that to bear in Hughes Academy. But CMS was phenomenal. It's always good to see, like, I did some site visits, and funny enough, sometimes it was interesting when I call, emails come in from inquiries and things like that, and you will get a call, or I will make a call and say, "Hey, I'm calling from CMS, and you had an inquiry here that we are trying to resolve." And sometimes people like, is it true? Am I getting a call from CME? Or whenever you go on a site visit, or I went on a site visit, and you go to the plans and everybody there is on the guard. Even site visits that we wanted to be there to be helpful, to be there to be helpful. Help us understand your processes. It's not about compliance, it's about being helpful to you. But you'll see that a lot of the plans will be on guard. They have the compliance people on board. It's like, we need your operations people that we can talk to. We can talk to that we can help. But it's just I don't know if that is the environment or to get before they bring the guard down to bring the operations people. Oh, they actually came to help, then excited to now open up in that way. But I think to me, those were the great moments of working at CMS. Being, I think maybe that's my natural capability or like inclination of being on the customer service side. So whenever I did that, it was very helpful for me and also helpful to the clients and see the growth in data submission in that.
I personally was on the side of being one who received those visits. And I think I can tell you what was going through my mind.
Okay.
A lot of times it was nervous because you wanted to make sure that you are doing everything that you needed to do to be compliant and put your best foot forward. But then also too, and I know you're going to laugh at this, but there's a little bit of fangirl in me just because we do this work. And I know that those that are in the industry are so passionate about it. CMS is like the mothership. It's just more awestruck, or at least it was for me in those experiences. I love that you brought up encounter data because I'm an old timer. I've been at this for 20 some odd years now. And I can remember a time when encounter data and EDPS was by the way of El Dorado and the Fountain of Youth, right? Like it wasn't quite there yet. And we were still on ramps. And even remember, I think it was 2018 where we were going to move forward and they reverted back to the 50-50 split. But anyway, I asked that because there's been a lot of changes and a lot of new programs coming out at CMS. And I know you no longer work there, but just curious if your experience, if you can comment on what your thoughts are, or maybe I word it this way. What's your biggest desire for how we use data, or where would you like to see us go? Because I think that EDPS has gotten much better. The
Better.
MAO4s, right? The MAO2s and the other things that you mentioned. We've come a long way and pretty quickly, but I think that there's still a long way to go, especially because we're relying right on this data in our risk contracts um, for that data completeness. And if I handed you a magic wand and said, "What do you wish for as it relates to data?" What do you think where do we need to go in order to be at that perfect state,
Perfect.
if you
Yeah.
will? Yeah.
Thank you for that. I think data collection is not just for data collection's sake, right? It is very expensive. It is very time consuming. In terms of using data, how does the data collection and all the data that is pulled together, all the analytics that are pulled together, how does that ultimately affect patient care and value? BBC One, how does that affect the value that a patient get? So ultimately, the easy to me and some of the work that I worked on when I was a CMS, the policy, the data aligning, either from the health plan, physician alignment, so data alignment. And that's one area that Hughes Academy really touch on. How do we align the data in such a way that from the provider, the risk that is seen in the patient is seen in the provider systems, right? Provider next to the health plan, you have a clearinghouse in the middle. It's aligned in that way, health plan to CMS. And the money that goes back out and the reports that are going back are all online. So ultimately, even if I am submitting, let's say, a claim or encounter data record, I know I have an idea of what is the impact is going to be on the patient. So ultimately, I think the ultimate desire is data getting into wisdom, getting to intelligence and wisdom, ultimately affecting the patient care, the benefit, Medicare beneficiary that CMS and all of us in this industry are working to improve life and quality of care. Ultimately, I think that is the goal of my desire that data will do as we move forward in this industry.
No, I think that's great. And then I know you mentioned that you have your doctorate in healthcare informatics.
Informatics.
And
Yeah.
so, building off of what you said about patient care, is there any data that you think that we're missing or we haven't asked for yet, or is lacking from being able to provide that patient care?
Wow, that is that's
Million
a big
dollar
question.
question.
Any data, right? But I think I appreciate the supplemental benefits data that is being collected now.
Interesting.
I know it's going to be a lot of work, definitely, but at least any data that comes in, if it's put to work very well, bids come in. There are supplemental data that is coming in. OIG also touches on how the data is being correct. The data is correct, it transform into money that you're receiving as a health plan or provider and ultimately providing service for the patient or the beneficiary and then improving quality of care. I don't think OIG is just collecting or doing audits and CMS collecting data just for data sake. I think the supplemental data is going to be phenomenal if it's collected well, if it's easy to understand, and that is where the understanding come in. If that data is submitted well, and I believe that people want to do the right thing. So if they have the better understanding, they have the knowledge, they have the data to supplement it, and supplemental with encounter data, claims data, all these being put together to understand how the resources that plans are getting passing on to providers affect a patient care. I think that would be phenomenal because ultimately, I think that is the ultimate desire, at least from my perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, agree with you 100%. All right. I know you have that great experience with working with CMS in the past, but you continue to have a relationship with them. And I know that you've been working on some new technological tools. I would love for you to talk a little bit more about what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. So currently I work with another company called JOS Group, and we have a contract doing training with CMS and all the risk adjustment data training that we currently do. And apart from the risk adjustment training that we are doing on data and understanding policies and things like that on CMS, CSSC websites and other things, we're also working at from Heals Academy perspective, have the risk adjustment success GPT. And the risk adjustment success GPT is pretty much the information that is difficult and hard to find and understand, pulled together, curated, cleaned up, terminologies cleaned up. So calendar year will be consistent across, service year will be consistent across, so that and putting on top of it a large language model to help answer questions quickly and instantly. So instead of maybe downloading the PDF files, trying to understand and navigate through all, we've done all of those light work for you, clean them up for you. All we ask of you to ask the questions. So you ask the question and then it gives you the answer. And we are continuously developing it. We've developed it. We have the version one that we are rolling out But because of the large language model, we are looking at the questions that are queries that are coming in, we are cleaning it up and seeing the answers right or no, and cleaning it out, continuously developing the model. But ultimately, want to give you your time back in finding and navigating through resources. So that's one of the things that we are working on together with all the Hughes Academy cheat sheets, free of charge, and the YouTube videos that you will find on LinkedIn that you can use to learn a lot about risk adjustment basics, Medicare Advantage risk adjustment basics.
I think that's great. And what I love too, what you said was about validating it, because I think that's so important. Because as you said, even us reading it, and I think Chat GPT is wonderful, but I think that there still needs to be some oversight and some of that validation, and especially because those documents are difficult. And like I shared, I ended up back in 2011 one time looking for something on encounter processing, but I think that's so important that you're doing that validation.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know, you're at 1.0, you're doing that work. How is it being used today? And then what do you think as far as stability with people being able to access it and use it, say 1 year from now, 3 years from now, so on and so forth? What are you thinking as far as when you'll feel like it's a reliable tool? And I don't know, this is not a good question
Yeah.
that I'm asking.
No, I think yeah, I think that's a good question. I think now currently what we have the version 1 that we are rolling out, and as a last large language model, it learns from it and we fine tune the model. Like currently you can go to the regular chat GPT or cloud and ask a risk adjustment question, you'll probably not get the right answer. But at least this is being trained on risk adjustment resources and encounter
Nice.
data submission resources that are specific to encounter data and risk adjustment operations. And therefore, ask questions, as people work with it and ask questions. And we can the developers in the background can take the back end and look at questions that are coming in and clean it up and train the model so that the answers are right. I work mostly at resolving inquiries at CMS. So I almost 500 questions that I resolve on for reports. So I have a better understanding than many people that are trying to get into this industry. So with that, one thing too that helps me is what questions are people asking help with the Hughes Academy, what type of places resources that we need to develop for. So in the background, it's helping me triage what people are needing, what questions are people, what queries are. I think there is a website called Answer the Public. So I just think a lot of it that way,
Nice.
seeing what questions are people that are getting into the industry, either and asking those questions that we can better put these tools together. We want to save you time. Ultimately, we want to save you time. We want you to get the right answer and save you time so that you focus on what is serving the patients that you've been called to do. So 5 years from now, I'm working and our team is working that by 5 years from now, this might probably be the ultimate source that one can know that where can I find risk adjustment questions answers immediately? The first thing is risk adjustment success GPT. We want to make sure you are successful in your Medicare Advantage risk adjustment work. And ultimately that is what formed in the name of the product. And that is where we want to see.
No, I think that's great. So, Prince, I think as an educator, one of the things that you need to be attuned to is what's on the horizon. And I know that you have a lot of really distinct special knowledge that a lot of folks in the industry simply don't have, having that experience with working with groups, being at CMS, and then also having that rich background in data management and in informatics. Would love to get your thoughts on, there's been a lot of talk about the industry changing. We know that there's been a lot of new programs that have come out from CMS, and then this idea that everyone be in a risk bearing contract. And it doesn't necessarily mean Medicare Advantage, but then
Mhm.
everyone be in a risk bearing contract by 2030. Just wanted to get your thoughts and Heals Academy's thoughts on what are the things that you are most curious about, maybe most trepidatious about, things that you're really watching that you think that could be significantly influential in what we're doing in the industry today.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing that I would want to talk and you talk about one take, looking forward, I think data collection is one big thing. data, the cost of using data is significantly going down. The cost of hosting data is significantly going down. The cost of analytics is significantly going down. So data collection and using that data for fraud, waste, and abuse is a big one. You can see that from what OIG has
Mm.
published, even beyond Medicare Advantage specifically, like risk-bearing contracts, managed care are being scrutinized because we want to CMS and the OIGs are making sure that the financial resources, that taxpayers' money that are being used are ultimately impacting patient care. And as I stated earlier, data, the Fed is not just interested in collecting data, right? Not interested in just collecting data, but being able to use the data to make sure it has impact. And as we look at the horizon, making sure that alignment of data, if I could say 5 years, 10 years, is even before a claim is submitted, that you can you imagine you can even talk about the fact that, okay, the ACC, the risk score, if it's going to cause fraud, waste, and abuse. Like,
Yes.
I wish that is the time so that you correct course at the source. As a quality improvement specialist, quality at the source is always very important. And I think knowing getting to a point that we're able to correct course at the source will be very significant in doing that and making sure that patients get things there. If I'm looking at the 5 year, 10 year horizon, I will be know your data, use your data, make your data useful and usable. Not only useful, make it usable so that you can make money. That will be one place that I would say, one thing I'll say.
I really like that you used the idea about making it useful and using that data. And when I think about technology adoption, those are the principles that you're looking at. But what I really liked about what you said, and when I think about even the changes that came about with V28, a lot of the changes that were made because they felt that the diagnoses that they removed from the model or didn't keep in V28 from V24 were things where maybe there was over projection of what
Yeah,
expense would be. And so that makes perfect sense in that they want you to, again, use the data,
use the
but make
data.
sure that it's useful. And so if you're reporting on conditions to be at greater significance than what they really are, that makes perfect sense. Are there any, just thinking about V28 and your experience, is there anything that you would care to comment on that you think maybe not that CMS got it wrong, but 'cause we would never say that. But maybe they might want to rethink or there's something that maybe they could have taken a stronger stance on. But any recommendations that you would have in what was put forth in the most recent model that you might have words of advice or caution?
Yeah, I think, yeah, thank you so much. I think it goes back to data, right? I think the team in there are looking at data submitted, either from RAPs to encounter data. Why did we move from CMS moved from RAPs to encounter data? Because it's more data, right?
Mhm.
And now looking at why are diagnoses being taken out or taken in, or why are the ACCs moved in? It's data work, right? Acting on what the data is telling them. There might be sometimes politics, but ultimately, I think working on what the data is telling them. So as the industry moves and CMS moves from RAPs, fee for service, either using encounter database models and develop things, ultimately CMS is using the data. So as accurate as the industry that is sending data to CMS, and the industry is getting from the patients, I'm supposing, right? Getting from the patients, and the data the industry is submitting to CMS is reflecting what ultimately the patient
Mhm.
has. Because as I said, CMS is thinking about the patient. So the data should be aligned from the patient to the provider to the health plan with all the things. And sometimes it takes a long time for these to come in and go out. But as accurate as the data gets to CMS, CMS is analyzing the data, using the data, and then reflecting on the data and seeing how that data can translate back to the patient. One thing I would always encourage anyone in this is making sure your data the data reflect accurately, completely, and timely. And that's what Heals Academy is like set out to do. Risk adjustment is about fairness, right? Fair payment based on the patient diagnosis. The timeliness is important. The completeness is important. The accuracy is important until you get to that fairness. But if all these, you might have the right data, but it's not submitted timely, CMS is looking at the data that they have as at that time to make policies. So getting the data in on time, getting the data in, making sure it's complete, getting in knowing that it's accurate, then it comes back reflecting that fairness. And that is what I would comment on. Ultimately, the principles of risk adjustment is about fairness. And therefore, the completeness, the accuracy, the timeliness helps get to that fairness. And that would be one place that I would always recommend.
I really like your perspective there. And I think just thinking back of when they made the move from RAPS to encounter data, the whole premise was that the patient was seen because RAPS, you could get it from chart review or potentially other sources. It was supposed to be reflective of a face to face visit, but I think that the encounter really encourages that visit. And I love what you said about fairness too, because I'm definitely a proponent of making sure that you're accurately capturing the acuity of your patients.
Mhm.
But I would love to get your thoughts on that idea around the timeliness and completeness, because that seems to be a challenge. And I know
Yes.
myself in working with a lot of groups, getting that complete information, making sure even when it's complete or you're populating it, particular data sets that sometimes the appropriate field is it doesn't really translate. And so then the data goes nowhere. And so they went from this minimal set, which was with RAPS,
Perhaps.
just a few pieces of data, to this more complex with EDPS. But it
Mhm.
seems like even now, and I don't know how many years are we into it, I think 10 maybe or
Yeah.
8. We're still not where we need to be. Any any recommendations that you might have for groups that are trying to make sure that their data is complete? How do they get there other than working with you or with
So
another consultant?
definitely,
But
yeah.
are there any recommendations for them to check? Because I think I know in working with groups, they don't always know. And it's not like it's smoke signals or big red flags and flares going off to let you know that your data really is not going anywhere. Is there anything that you would recommend to ensure those immediate pieces of that completeness and the timeliness of which you spoke?
Yeah. And one word you use that I'm gonna catch on is they don't always know.
Yeah.
Knowledge.
Yeah.
I have seen from being out from CMS for the past maybe 2 years now, is that the risk adjustment knowledge is not democratized. It may be a few people or vendors that know what to do. Just imagine the provider has some idea. The person that is called in has some idea. The IT person has some idea, and all the ideas are, or the knowledge is aligned, right? And it prevents the back and forth of the data that you submit. The data from the IT person is incomplete because the IT person is pushing it, maybe just pushing the data, not having that
Yes.
knowledge. So the knowledge and having that access to knowledge, you don't need to be the super expert, but at least know how whatever task that you are doing has that knowledge flows. And therefore, everybody is aligned. Not only data is aligned, but when people are aligned, data will be aligned. And having that openness. And one thing I love about the GPT is that you can ask the question, I am an IT specialist new to risk adjustment. Based on the resources, how would you explain this to me? Have a different learning style, and as an educator yourself, have a different learning styles to cater the LLM is going to develop it for the person. A person that is doing documentation integrity may say, I am documentation integrity person. This is how I learn. Take these same resources, but use a different analogy for me. You see how now, with the same information,
Yes.
knowledge is democratized to suit the person's style of learning or what the person's work is doing. And that is where, as I was talking to people and envisioning, like I heard that over and over time, people may ask, Prince, can you explain to this? Can you explain to that? But then how do I replicate myself, replicate the knowledge I have, democratize it as much as possible, and then use it to train and see how best we can people can have access to information. You might be at a party or at your kid's birthday, and your manager may ask you like, there's a deadline coming up, what is this question? You don't have to quickly jump on your computer. You may not have to quickly jump on your computer, try to search online and download this spreadsheet, and the GPT can ask you. It's like a pocket advisor in a little bit that together with your knowledge can help with that way. But I think the knowledge, and you use like, how do we know? The knowledge is very important to me. And someone in instruction and education, I think that is where I felt my calling and my fit. And that is why I got into this space.
No, I think that's great. And I think that folks will find it really helpful. And I can't even tell you how many interviews that I've done now where that hasn't come up or that I feel
Yeah,
things. Can you make it more simple? Can you make it easier for me to understand? Because it's a very discrete
I
set of
agree.
capabilities and skills and knowledge. And it takes time. It definitely takes time to learn. And I think with all the changes, right, things are
Yeah.
rapidly changing. So I think that's a powerful resource. Thinking about changes, talk to us a little bit about how are you making sure that tool is keeping up to date so that folks are getting the most recent? Because I can tell you, even just yesterday, I had to pull something for someone on new enrollees, and I went back to 2014. So how, and sometimes that's where the knowledge
Yes.
is, but just curious about how are you taking in the bulk of
Bulk of
information that
knowledge.
is coming out? Yeah. And making sure that it's treated appropriately, right? So that it gets fed into the model and then is used in a way that's, I guess you would say, discriminate.
Yeah, I think currently what we have as if it's a subject area that looking at all the resources pertaining to area. For example, maybe you may be talking about chart review deletes. Just throwing something that is very difficult to find. Chart review deletes. You click on, you go online, it will be giving you several resources. And that's the advantage I have being here in this space for a while. Um, Grabbing resources, aligning them year by year, seeing how the resource or resources pertaining to that subject area is being changing, and then cleaning it up based on and timestamping them based on the years. And therefore, one can ask, maybe the data is pertaining to 2014. As of 2014, what was the policy as at that time? Maybe pertaining to 2024. If it hasn't changed, the date stamp tells you that it hasn't changed. And that is the vision where we are currently heading, making sure they are
Right.
time appropriate, because risk adjustment is also timeliness. And I know we talk about timeliness. Is that it's not just about submission, but it's not just about math. It's not just about the mathematical process. It's also a timely process. So knowing what time, knowing what model change, what it applied to, and when a policy applied to something as you do analytics is very important, very crucial. And one thing that I appreciate about people that have been in this industry for a long time is that wealth of knowledge pulled together and created that way, timestamp in that way helps in that way. And then going back into reviewing what the answers have been so that we can correct the model to spit out or give out the right information at the right time is also very crucial in terms of trying to make sure that people get correct answers than just instant answers.
And you made me think too, I think that there's cross disciplines, right? So it's not even just about risk, but encounter data or looking at the claims manuals or, yeah, there's lots of other documentation. How are you thinking about that? And um, I'd be interested to know what goes into the thought of how you're building that model so that you have the information that's needed in
Yeah,
order to answer the question appropriately. Because, like we said, right, it's the date stamps, you want current stuff, but again, it might go beyond risk adjustment and bleed
risk
over
adjustment.
into claims processing or something else.
Yeah, I think currently we focused on Medicare Advantage risk adjustment, and it's very interesting that I had a question on LinkedIn that someone asked when I started. We started rolling out or telling more about the risk adjustment success GPT, and even within risk adjustment, one was asking, "Is this Medicare Advantage? Is it ACA?
Yeah.
How do you
Is
let
it
the
just
model know the same question, but maybe different for a different area of work?" But currently, the focus has been Medicare Advantage risk adjustment. And we want to master that. And after we master that and learn from it, we can use that to apply to other ways. But so far, the focus have only been on Medicare Advantage risk adjustment. And that is where we want to master first. And then we can learned the knowledge that we are learning from there can see how best we can apply to other areas of Medicare of risk adjustment. But I also know that the risk adjustment have claims, the information in terms of submission using EDI stuff, right? Which ones are applicable to the risk adjustment, either from the processing guide or either from the manual, the managed care manual, and that even with the managed care manual, there are some updates in other resources, either HPMS memo resources that have been updated in that way. How do we claim and clean and make sure that within a subject area, there is accurate and correct information for people that ask the question? So that is what we are learning, and that is what we are tackling. I think it's a big challenge, and it's a big challenge, but I feel that that has been my calling. I feel that has been my calling. So I want to carry, I want the mountains, right? I want the mountains, but it's not only done by me. I think I want to emphasize that because even where I am, I have stood on the shoulders of many. So I always want to acknowledge those that are there to jump ideas with me, bounce things with me, talk through with me. And I want to emphasize that because it's not just a one man show. It's not going to be possible to be done that way. But people that have reached out, people that have looked at, people that are better in other areas than myself, that have given comments, have been instrumental in getting to what we are. And that's where the community comes in. We all have areas of expertise. And as we build a community of learners and give ourselves the opportunity, it has happened in multiple places in technology, in several industries. How are we learning from there to make sure risk adjustment knowledge is open and helpful and useful for positive disruption?
I'm excited. I'm excited for the tool and agree Medicare Advantage is a huge field to tackle. Excited for the potential to even to be applicable to Medicaid and, like you said, to commercial risk. And I think that there's just a lot of opportunities. And so really looking forward to it. So
Thank you.
I know our time is almost to a close. Wanted to give you an opportunity if there's anything else that you wanted to share with us today or make us aware. I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that too.
Sure. At Hughes Academy, we have free resources that are online on YouTube because people were asking, do you have anything on YouTube? Is there anything on risk adjustment on YouTube? I searched and I couldn't find one. So I started one. We take that initiative. So you can learn a lot on our YouTube channel, the Hughes Academy YouTube channel, and also on our website. We have several cheat sheets for free that you can download and learn. It covers payment years, the years. This month in April, we are covering duplicates, right? Duplicate edits. So we've taken each one of them, built it up, and taken several resources and created a cheat sheet that you can take and I'll see all the duplicate edits that you will see on EDPS and what it means and what reports you'll find them in and how to resolve them. So we take it one by one and break it down in that way. We have an email list that you can jump on so that you don't miss anything from us. We are thinking through ways that we can build a learning community that like memo comes out and we pull things together and we want to master this. And not only one person mastering it, we want to create a community of learners that can master this together. And if just imagine you have a team where everybody is a master in where they are executing, just imagine that. And that is where we want to get your team to. So at Hughes Academy, we want to create that community, that learning community, that sharing community that we are able to now open up and execute in that way. And I appreciate the time and the opportunity with One VPC and Dr. Decker for the time and being able to share this with our industry. And I'm very excited. It's a challenging task. I remember I went to Rise and somebody asked me last year, what does Hughes Academy does? And I asked, we are intending to simplify Medicare Advantage risk adjustment. And the person says, huh. Right. And that is the reaction I get. Huh. Okay, good luck. But I think it has happened in other industries. And together as a community, we can make it happen. And I look forward to that.
I think that's amazing. I've really enjoyed speaking with you. And I know I always love getting to chat with you and hear what you're up to. And if anyone can make it simple, I absolutely believe that you can. Really appreciate your time today and hope folks will check out Heals Academy and all the great resources. I know I'm going to go check out your YouTube video on years, but I know it's something that's stymied me over the years too. Thank you so much, Prince. Really appreciate you giving us your time today. And I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. And you too.
Okay.
Bye for now.